Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm not just an employee of the city, but I'm also a resident of the city myself, so it's nice to be able to give back and do some of this. I've been working in IT more than 20 years. I've always done some form of support or troubleshooting or training, and that's kind of my passion, is to try and teach people things so that you're not left alone and that you can actually do a lot of this on your own, and you feel confident about it, you're not scared about it. So some of the things that I'm going to show you today, I'm not sure if you would have used them before, but I encourage you to use them and to share them with both friends and family. So just to get us started, I know it might be tough if you have a fork in your hand or a piece of pizza, but I'd like you to raise your hand if you have a computer, a big PC at home in your own home. Okay. Keep your hand up if you also have a cell phone, which majority of you. And keep your hand up if you have a smartphone or a phone that you access the internet from. Okay, so the numbers go down a little bit. They tell me that 64% of adults now, so anyone over the age of 18, has at least one, if not three, of those devices on them. And they're accessing them every single day through the internet and getting into things. And over half of them hit a virus or get what they call malware at least once a month. So it's kind of scary. So some of these things that have been in the past, you've been able to stay away from and protected from, you're now having to come across them more often. So some of the things we're going to show you today are going to help you with how to notify and how to watch out for some of those things on your own. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you just a really quick 3-minute video to help you finish your pizza, and then we can get through the conversation. Watch the video and think of things that it can show you to help watch out for in the future if you haven't.
Hey guys, Jack Bill here. Have you ever misspelled Facebook or Craigslist and all of a sudden a pop-up showed up on your computer screen? Big warning sign, call us right away, we'll fix it for you. Well, I decided to get to the bottom of this scam, so I took a screenshot of that warning message and called the company.
What's going on with my computer?
I'm not exactly sure, so we'll have to get connected first so I can see what's going on. Are you running any protection now?
No, it's been years. We have several children together. My husband won't go forward. He says it feels different or something. I don't know.
Are you in Safari right now?
That was a few years ago. We went to Africa for that, but I'm at home now.
Should I go on any bookmarks and open up the internet?
It looks like a compass.
Okay, put your mouse over that.
Huh? It's a desktop. Oh, mouse. I thought you said mouth.
My wife is on the phone here, and now we got you on speaker. Now what do we do here?
Usually at the Apple Store, if you're dealing with some kind of software problem, they're pretty expensive. They're about $400 or $500.
I make a fruitcake that's to die for.
Okay, well, we do have to process this with money. You know that, correct?
I believe so, honey. I just don't know the details. You haven't given me the details.
The way it works is the remote session will connect, okay, so we'll fill out a work order and then I'll transfer you over to the technician. The technician will
Yes.
be on the computer.
Okay, all right, I understand.
For about 6 to 8 hours. So you have to stay off the computer for that amount of time.
No, we're at our limit here. We've only got about $400 left that we can spend for the month here on any incidentals and things of that nature that come up. And fortunately, we're at the end of the month, but this isn't going to cost more than $400, is it?
It's $3.99. Or anything like that.
Wow, that's a good coincidence there. Yeah, $400 I said is all we've got left to spend, and then I find out it's $3.99. That couldn't have been better worked out, huh?
I don't think you could have been any more perfect. What do you think?
We had spent that $400 on, ingredients for baked goods, so we're gonna go ahead and send. What's the address where we can send it out? We worked it out with UPS.
Are you trying to tell me that you're trying to send me something you're not going to give me your credit card information?
Well, what I'm trying to tell you is I'm sick and tired of these scams popping up on the computer, and do what now? Wow! Unbelievable, dude. All I have is $400 left for the month, and it just happens to be $399. I hope you guys have that phone number that I gave you. There it is. Call them and have some fun. Guys, don't forget to like this video and share it with everybody you know so that no one else gets scammed. Has this ever...
What's just one or two things that you noticed? I heard a lot of laughter. What are one or two things you could have noticed or that you learned from this video? What's that about the phone?
I do no business on my phone.
No business on the phone. You don't know who you're talking to. Very good. Yes?
Never tell anybody how much money you have.
Never tell them how much money you have.
Even undertakers, never tell them how much.
If you can tell your own undertaker how much money you have, then there's other things that you could be making money from. Did you have another one?
That they can change what they're saying by the answers you get. They can adapt really quickly to keep you going.
They can change their answers based on what you say to keep you going. A lot of times these scammers are listening for specific details that you tell them. How much money you have, where you live, what you're looking for, what you're scared of. A lot of that information they've been trained in to get anything possible out of you. While $400 may not seem like a lot to a scammer, it's a lot to each person that gives that up. And the scariest thing is once you give up $400, they're going to come back at you for more. So it doesn't just stop there. So always be on the alert for some of those things. One personal experience I can share is my parents also are on the internet probably more than I am. And they have their own computer that they have me help them troubleshoot. And they've actually gotten some of those scam alerts on their computer. And it's scary because it tells you that your computer's infected, it tells you that you're not safe, and that you need to do something right away. So when you call that number, then you kind of think, oh, in my gut, did I really do the right thing? And my parents called me one time after they'd already called somebody to connect, and some of the tips I'm going to share with you today are what I told them. Turn off your computer, turn off any possibility of your Wi-Fi connecting to that computer until you can verify with your bank that they haven't gotten information that you've given them. So these are the things I'm going to go talk about quickly here in the next half an hour. Just tips. 1, turn it off whenever you're in doubt. Your gut is the best instinct you have. Just because you're older doesn't mean that you don't know what's right and what's wrong, especially when it comes to technology. There are hackers behind there that if you tell them you're not going to give them your credit card information, they will. They're going to swear at you, they're going to get angry, they're going to hang up. But that's the exact response that you need. So if there's ever a doubt, just turn it off. I, for information, it's safe to share. So we're going to go over some of the things that it is okay to share and some of those things that it's not okay to share. And P, for passwords, your passwords should be complex or complicated. Does anybody have a password that's their name? That's just your name, your first name? Okay, good. And that wasn't to draw anybody out, but that's one of the first things I tell people. Don't have it be your name, because that's the easiest way that they can hack into anything that you have access to. And secure websites are best, and I'll talk a little bit more about those. So turning it off, here's just another example of a pop-up. Pop-ups typically come for 3 typical things. Computer repair. They know that your computer is your lifeline and that it's your communication tool to your family and your friends and often your bank accounts. So they're going to tell you that you need computer repair right away. Viruses, right here the pop-up says your email box is infected. That means that they have access to your contacts and everyone that you send email to. So that would be pretty scary if that comes up. So they're trying to get your attention by having these pop-ups. And then Windows updates. A lot of times Microsoft does send valid updates, but if there's ever a pop-up that isn't from Microsoft or isn't from a program that you actually have installed, it can be just as generic as saying you need Windows updates right now to keep your computer secure. That can be a scam as well. So if you ever have any of these pop-ups, first thing you think about, is it something that I have on my computer? So if it's not something for a valid program or it doesn't go into specifics, don't click on it. Just close it and you're good to go. If it's something that is about computer repair and it's not from a technician or a vendor that you've heard from or that you've contacted directly, never click on it. It's always a way for them to try to get money or to connect to your computer to use your connection. And then the viruses, make sure that you have a valid virus protection program. Does everyone know what I mean when I say virus protection program? Okay. Some of the common ones that are automatically installed when you buy a computer, Symantec or Norton antivirus, McAfee antivirus, And then there's a couple of other ones that you can purchase for free, but let Jerry know if you need any help with that. We can certainly find some resources for you if you don't have one. Turning it off, the other two recommendations that I've had, let's say that you do get into something that you thought was pretty valid, but it does then become questionable and you're worried about your computer. Turning it off and then putting it into safe mode. It's not scary and it can't damage anything if you go into this, but I tell people to try it just because it can clean off something as far as a connection that has been started to a scammer. So when you turn off your computer and you turn it back on, right after you hit the power button, start hitting F5 on your keyboard. It's one of the function keys at the top. What it's going to do is it's going to bring you to a black screen that says safe mode options. And all you have to do is hit enter and it'll go into safe mode. The scary part is then it comes into Windows and it looks like your normal Windows screen, but it has a border on it and a default that tells you you're in safe mode. Basically, this is a mode that is not allowing anyone to connect in. It's allowing you to get out, but it's not allowing anyone to connect in. And then you can run things like a virus scan or a malware program to actually look at things. Yes?
I'm wondering what the correlation is for Mac products.
I would have to check into that. I can check and let you know. I don't have any Macs here in the city or at home, so I would have to look at that. One thing that they have said is Macs are less vulnerable because of some of the things that just hit Windows, but they are also vulnerable to other things, so I'll look into that. Good question. The example I give here is just one of many. I've used this one for over 10 years and it's very reputable. Malwarebytes.org, and that's their most recent logo. It's a free program you can download, and what this does is it scans your computer for malware. One of the biggest differences between viruses and malware is that malware sits behind your programs and it doesn't always show its ugly face until it's too late. So a lot of times your virus protection won't find the malware, but a malware program will find that for you. So this is just one of many that you can check on. A reputable vendor, I said if you haven't contacted one, you always can. There are many of them. I just gave one based on my parents' example. They typically bring theirs to Best Buy Geek Squad and they've had good luck with it. It can get pretty pricey if you're going to get a backup and a restore of all of your information, but they will let you know if they see evidence on your computer of someone hacking into your computer, and then they'll help you clean it up. So information that's safe to share. We're going to go through just 3 true or false questions just to get you thinking about this. True or false? It's okay to share your address and phone number online to anyone. False. Why is that false? Then it's out there for everybody then. Anything online should be considered public information unless it's specifically secure. And that's where we'll talk about secure websites. But you never want to share your address and phone number unless you want everyone to come over for dinner. True or false? It's always a good idea to let your friends and family know on Facebook when you're going to be on vacation. False. Why is that false? Everybody knows you're gone. Your house is the most vulnerable thing. I don't care what security system you have. If you tell somebody online you're going to be on vacation for a week, there's going to be at least 10 or 20 hackers that are going to try to get into that. And not just get into your physical property, but anything on that property, so anything online. There's ways that hackers have of monitoring and seeing what wireless devices are out there, what network routers are out there, and if they see that connected with a GPS location of your specific address, then they know nobody's there that's checking that. I could have all the time in the world, or that week they're on vacation, to try and hack into that, and then I have something that they don't want me to have. True or false? Always let others know ahead of time when you'll be moving so they know not to send your mail to that address. False. Why would that be a bad idea? They know exactly when. Yep. And depending on the timing, it's one of those things that if you move out before the new people move in, you're financially responsible. So if somebody sees that, oh, they're moving today, I can go, it's empty, nobody's in there, I see the boxes, they can do damage, they can have things that are sent from that address, they can do all kinds of things that you would be liable for. And granted, you can go back and go through that process, but sometimes the recovery is almost more painful than the first step of just not telling people. Good job. So the P for passwords. So Having complexity in passwords can be useful, and I was going to do this at the end of the presentation, but I'm going to do it right now. HowSecureIsMyPassword.net is a resource that I actually have my family check too. It's a very simple website, and you can see it's a secure website because it says HTTPS. I'll get into more about why that's important later. How secure is my password? So I'm just going to type in my name. Capital B, R-E-N-D-A. Your password would be cracked instantly. So if my password was that for my bank accounts, gone. They've got all my money. And not just my money then, they have access to my money until I change my password. So okay, I don't want to use that one. Let's go ahead and add my favorite number. Your password would be, take a minute to crack your password. So I don't know about you, but I'm not comfortable going from instantly to 1 minute. That's not enough lead time for me for a hacker. So okay, I'll go ahead and I'll add a character. So I've got Brenda plus a number plus a character, which usually pretty complex, right? It would take 9 hours to crack my password. I don't know about you, but I leave in the morning at 7 to drop my kids off at school. I go to work, I get home at 5, little after 5, because I work and live in the same city. My password would be done. They would have everything by the time I got home. So nope, I'm not happy with that. Let me go ahead and add another character. So I'm up to 9 characters now. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 4 weeks to crack my password. In 1 month's time, they would have access to that. How often do you guys change your passwords? Just shout out a number.
2 years.
2 years. I see some shakes of the head. Is that never? Yep. I yelled at my parents for about a week when they told me they'd never changed their passwords. And they get mad at me now because every time I go up there I make them change them, but it helps. Yes?
Can they track your password if you turn your computer off?
Yes. Your password is saved, not just on your computer, but it's saved on the network, on the internet. It's saved with any site that you use that password for. Yes?
How do these hackers single you out?
How do they single you out?
Yeah.
Right now, they're working on anything that's vulnerable.
How do they know
They-
it's you?
They don't, but once they find a crack, they open it even wider. So it's not just that they're singling you out as a specific person, they're singling you out if you don't have complexity, if you don't have things that are secure. They're looking for these openings, and it's getting harder and harder for them because of things like this that we share these tips. But if you never change your password and it's not complex, they're gonna find you really quick, and then they're gonna see what they can use to get access. And I often have this question at the city, well, I don't have anything. The city's got public information. Why does it matter? Why do we need to be secure? It's not just the data or the information that you have, like your credit card or any files. It's using your connection to get to something else. So that it's not then on them, it's on someone who they're going through. So if somebody hacked into a city computer or a city account and then used that to pass through to something else as dangerous as going to the county or country or state or even international level, the pinpoint back to that could come to the city and say, hey, you guys were vulnerable, you're responsible for this. And it may not ever get back to that hacker who knows how to stay anonymous and how to not have the identity known really quickly.
Where are they looking to find this information?
They have computers right in their homes. They're just using their computers to try and look for things and look for
Bring the box up,
vulnerabilities.
they say, oh, there she is.
They're looking at different websites. They're looking at different avenues of communication like email or Facebook or Instagram, those types of things. All of those programs have coding behind them that can open up avenues electronically for them to actually use. Yes?
What about me by phone? How secure is it really?
It depends on the vendor that you're using for it. Yes.
The companies that you.
Another conversation that I did not put in this because we only have a little less than an hour, payment card industry compliance, so PCI compliance. One of the biggest reasons that you're getting now credit cards or debit cards that have that chip on them is because the other cards are not compliant with their own standards, and it's getting harder and harder for any industry to become compliant with that. So now these chips are putting it so that then the responsibility goes back onto the user. But credit card industry has to be compliant by certain standards in order to have their registration and their license. But depending on the vendor that you're working for, if you're not checking if they're PCI compliant or if they're not using secure payment processing, then they're not usually responsible. It's back on the customer.
What about the cards that have the chips, but you go to whatever store and their readers don't work?
Yep.
So you're not any safer than you were with the card without the chip, right?
That's correct. And it's also, if the place where you're using it, if they don't hand you that device, but you give them your card and they put it in, still no more secure. What that physical card can do is can carry secure encrypted information that you or should be the only person that's putting that card into that device. And it's going to take some time for all the vendors to get to that, but yes, you're not any more secure by doing it right now with that. Yes.
I'm getting the idea that it should
Okay.
be,
Oh, what? If you can hold on one second, sir, and then I'll come back to you after her.
I'm getting the idea that the chip protects the credit card company rather than you. Is that true?
It's supposed to protect you, but until the devices, the credit card machines and the companies are in compliance, it's not going to do any different than what you're doing with just sliding your card. Yes.
Another question, at our bank, we used to get our statements every month. All of a sudden now I've had to go back twice already, because it's been put on the internet. I never put it on the internet, but all of a sudden, our stuff is on there. We don't do the internet for the money, and now we gotta go back with another account, we gotta change again. What?
Sometimes, and I bank at Wells Fargo, and I've seen them go through a lot of changes with that. Sometimes their default security settings can change, and if you don't tell them you don't want that, then it goes by their default. And I think Wells Fargo is one of those that their default is to have those statements online. And even if you make that change, if they make another change on their computer systems, it may go back to that default. So again, it's up to the customer to make sure that you're on top of that and aware of that. Yes?
Sometimes the banks send you messages.
Yes. Was that your question? When the banks?
This is a fact.
Yeah, you should change your passwords all the time. And I don't mean every minute of every day, but I change mine once a month and I still don't feel comfortable, but I think for me that's because I'm in an admin area and I'm constantly at other people's computers.
Well,
Yes.
that's the way it all works, very so you gotta change all the time.
Yes.
How many passwords do you have to keep track of that you change all the time?
The last count I had was 450. And that's where sometime, I didn't get into that in this slide either, but if you want more information, I can give it to Jerry. I used to just keep them on a password protected Excel spreadsheet because I didn't trust applications to keep it safe for me. We have done a lot of testing here at the city with some of the password keeper programs basically. And Keeper is one that we've found no holes in, so we've been starting to test that with some of our passwords. So then you just know one password to get into that, and it encrypts it, and then it keeps your passwords in there listed however you want to organize them. Okay. All right. So again, you want to have complexity. I say go for 10 characters here because we saw that the time goes from 9 characters, 4 weeks, to 10 characters in years. So at least 10 characters. And you want to have at least one symbol. And I know that there's still some websites out there that don't allow special characters. So things like the @ symbol or the £sign, but you can always add a space. And I went through a computer forensics class actually with some people from Wells Fargo, and they were amazed at some of this. It was a few years ago. If you add a space, the hacker can't hack it for at least 6 months to a year, regardless of the number of characters. So adding that space in there actually creates a loop or a section or a break. So then you're making more work for the hackers to go through with that.
Your name and then a space and then a symbol?
Wherever the space is, and anywhere in your password, just have a space. Change it often, again, however often you're comfortable with. I would definitely caution no less than once a year, but I would definitely say every 6 months. That's what I make my parents do. Create a theme or a pattern that's easy for you to remember. Never share this and never write it on your desk. If you have your password underneath your computer, please go home and underneath your keyboard or on your monitor, please go home and remove it and put it someplace else. Anytime that anyone would have access to your home, and granted you trust your family and your friends, but you never know who could get into your home and who could see that. And I don't mean that to scare you, I'm just saying, don't put it right on your monitor or your keyboard. Please put it at least in a separate place, whether it's in a drawer or a file cabinet. The example I gave on here for creating a theme or a pattern, and then this is just one, if you're changing your passwords, you could just then add something to this so you're not having to create a new theme every single time and it gets to be really cumbersome to be creative. Example here, favorite movies. Star Wars, not my favorite movie, but I know a lot of people like it, so I used it as the example. It could become the $, TAR, W, the @ RS, and then 2 exclamation marks. So you're getting to the 10 characters. You're still spelling out Star Wars, so it's easy for you to remember, but then you're using those characters in a way that you would relate to, that somebody else can't always do that, and it gets the hackers away from just seeing a valid word in the dictionary that is easier to have. Oops. Sorry, I went backwards. So here's an example of a number character alphabet that I've used and that I've helped my parents with. So on the left, there's a box with some of the numbers that could become letters. So a 1 could be an I or an L. A 2 could also be the word to. So sometimes if somebody tells you you need a passphrase instead of a password, you could have I'm going to the movies and use the letter 2 or the number 2. Some of these others, 0, 4, and O, very, very common. But some of the other ones for special characters with the alphabet, the A, I always use an @ I don't think I've had an A in my password in a long time. The B could be the and symbol or ampersand. The C I put as a parenthesis because it kind of looks like a C. But again, when you're doing that, you're hitting the shift key. So a lot of times the combination of some of these can be pretty good too. Oh shoot, I didn't put it in here, I had another example. So for example, if you're doing B, like BE, you could put a capital B and the £, like it says for the letter E, because if I'm holding down the shift key and doing the BE, then it would be the capital letter and the £, instead of spelling out the word B, if that makes sense. The P for percentage starts with P. So if that makes sense in your head, you can do whatever starts with that to actually change it up a little bit. So finding a combination for these and something that's comfortable for you, play with it and get creative and use it, but that way you can have a theme that helps you remember in your head what's my password and how many times have I changed it, and then you can just add to it and then change it over time. Yes?
If you have 10 characters or 10 letters, whatever, when a hacker is trying to hack that, can they say, okay, I got the first letter now, or I got the first symbol, now let me try to get the second one?
When they go through and they show you, like hacker courses and computer forensic classes, they show you examples of some of the hacker programs. I didn't have time to bring one here, but that's typically how they do it. It's like a code, and it's, oh, there's the first one, there's the second one, and it just keeps working through it. And that's when we go to that howIsMyPasswordSecure.net, it goes through each of those, and I'll show you an example of how long it takes to get to a forever time. But yeah, they have programs that just run, so then there's not a person sitting at a computer trying to figure this out. They start a program and they come back 4 weeks later and they're in. And they're not doing it with just one person at a time, they're doing it at multiple computers. So yeah, it's kind of scary. So the S, secure websites are best. HTTPS, that's a secure website. S is for secure. HTTP, do not put credit card information on these. It is not secure in any way, shape, or form. And I say secure websites are best not just for your credit card information, but for your personal data too. If you're talking to somebody or you're doing something and they're asking for your credit card number, typically they're not going to ask for other things like your birth date or your social security number. But all of those pieces of information are very private, very confidential, and you should make sure that you're on a secure website anytime that you're entering those. Okay, so here's the other one. I'll show you with this. Oops. So we had the example with my name and a few characters to get it to 10. Okay, so here was 10 for 8 months. If I just keep hitting the keyboard one at a time, you see how many years it goes up? So that's 11 characters, it goes to 41 years. 3,000 years with 12 characters. And I'm not doing anything other than my name, a capital letter, a number, and an exclamation mark. So you can see, and I'm just adding letters to it. The number of characters continues to increase. And I'm just gonna go, so we'll just keep going here and this is how fast some of those programs would go. I don't even know how many characters that is to get to forever, but I had to sit there for a few seconds to put it in. There's no way I'd remember that or that I'd try to put that in there. But it just goes to show you that even with the complexity, it takes a long time before it's not hackable. Yes?
If you have one that would take, say, 41 years and it's expected to be dead by then, why would you have to keep changing it?
Because not just your password is the only vulnerability. Websites that you go to, they also have vulnerabilities. So if your password is not saved on their website in a secure encrypted format, it could be more vulnerable. This is just one example based on the format of your password. The other pieces around it could be where the password is saved, what it's used for, and who actually has access to it. We still have some programs in the city that we use that, because they're not as up to date, because they can't be as up to date because of other requirements that are part of it, we can't have characters in our passwords for that. So we need to make sure that it's secure. But there's also programs that store that password in text format so you can see it behind the scenes. So if that's one of the cases where your password is there, that decreases that time incredibly. Yes?
Sometimes they have that thing that pops up and says, do you want this site just keep all this information?
Don't do that unless you absolutely have to. If it's your own private computer, nobody else accesses it, and you have it secure at home, password protected, you can do that to save time when you're going through internet pages, but be very careful about what the site is. So depending on where the site goes, it can translate that and take it, even though you're saying to just remember it locally. Did I miss any other hands? Yes.
Would it be safe to change your password to the same on every site you go on, or should you change it to different?
You should change it to different ones. And if you think about it, if they get your password once, they have access to everything. And not just that they're targeting you, but they know trends. So let's say you bank at Wells Fargo, you have a Gmail or a Yahoo account, and you shop at Walmart online. If they get one password, they've got all of that information. And if they're connected to your computer, they have access to places that you've been on the internet, so they would know other places that you may have accounts that they could try that password for. So yeah, you don't have to do it for every single one, but definitely have a different password for your bank than you do for your email, because those are two of the most typical things. Yes?
There's also a phone scam from Microsoft too.
Yes.
That there. And I know somebody that did fight into that. They basically lost a computer.
Oh, that's so sad.
Thousands.
That is so sad. Yep. My parents and I hate to use them as an example, but they are. I keep yelling at them, and they've gotten in fights now. It's like, well, why didn't you call Brenda? She should know. Well, she's not up here. They're 2 hours away. So they have brought their computer in 3 times in the last year because of either things that they've clicked on or things that they've noticed that are strange, and they've had to pay Geek Squad to redo their computer each time that they've brought it in. And it's just, they tell them the vulnerability, they say, yep, I see that somebody's been hacking into your computer, and here's the information that they could see, and everything else is open to vulnerabilities because they couldn't tell. So it's often safer to spend your own money and replace it than it is to just be vulnerable sitting out there because they could get more. Yes?
I have a contract with Geek Squad, so when something goes wrong, you take it over there, and they fix it.
Now, when you say a contract, you have an ongoing.
I have a year's subscription, it costs me $100. I have 2 computers, and
Perfect.
one or the other goes in at least once a year.
So then with that contract, you pay that $100 a year, and then you don't have to pay them when you bring it in. That's great.
Unless it's
That's
something
great.
major, then they will charge you, but otherwise,
That's great.
please.
That's great. And yeah, I would consider them a reputable vendor for the most part. Geek Squad with Best Buy. Yep. So there's a couple more resources I was going to share with you on here. This is the Department of Homeland Security. So they've been making an effort to create basically instruction manuals for all adults, and not just around parenting, but around protecting yourself and keeping safe online. So DHS.gov, and it's in there's a handout that you guys all got in your folder that has the slides from this presentation. And if you want an electronic copy, I can let Jerry know and we can email it to you. I have the links for each of these specific websites and resources in the electronic copy as well. But this is a good place to find some of this information. So you can see, it might be kind of small to read. Choose a password that means something to you and only you. Use strong passwords with 8 characters or more that use a combination of numbers, letters, and symbols. So a lot of times, information that I'll tell you may be more secure than what they tell you because they're looking at the broader picture as far as some of those programs or websites, things that can't handle 10 characters or more. But that's based on their recommendation. They're going to give you the minimums that they recommend. And they have a lot of other resources on there that can help you as far as finding additional resources if you do run into problems with your computer or if you have specific questions about specific programs.